Just a robot.
Hey everybody, Noralities did oopsie! I don't know what's been going on with YouTube as of late, but there's a lot of channels that just blow up really fast, and then all of a sudden everybody hates them. So Noralities, whose name is obviously a pun on moralities, made a video about cancel culture, isekais, and a bunch of other stuff that started really blowing up. And to be honest, for the most part, her videos are pretty good. They're well written, the editing is nice, her avatar is pretty good, and most of her arguments do hold a lot of weight. The problem is some of her arguments are a little iffy and, yeah, she's a bit of a hypocrite. She complains about the sexualization of 16-year-old girls in My Hero Academia.
I can enjoy My Hero Academia and also dislike the way Horikoshi tends to sexualize his female cast and critically talk about those issues and still not personally attack him.
But she sexualizes the boys from My Hero Academia.
Noralities herself has drawn yaoi fanships of My Hero Academia characters. Whilst in my opinion these pieces of art are actually harmless, it's still taking children who are not adults and putting them in sexualized positions. These characters are 16, they are children. Yet Noralities has drawn them in out-of-character sexual ways. The most egregious example is this Bakugo sketch, wherein Bakugo is seen with an arrow pointing to what is presumed to be his genitals.
Same age, same show, same everything. I'm gonna use a clip of manga comment from one of my older videos that explains this really well.
While that is a strong statement to make, and one that a lot of people will agree with, you need to be careful because in your past you yourself drew highly suggestive art of an underage anime character. People are going to look at that and make the correlation that you are being hypocritical, especially in today's social climate and how Twitter likes to rage about anything.
But what puts her in more hot water is when she says this about cancel culture.
Then finally, on the right side, we get to a person did or said a bad thing a long time ago. Again, you have to consider the context of when the statement or action was made. If it was brought to light, did they apologize sincerely? Are they in a position of power? Because maybe they shouldn't be.
So now she kind of has to apologize because of her own rules. I mean, Jesus, how do you put yourself in this situation? Like, you'd think that complaining about, lolicon, pedophilia, and other stuff like that would be the easiest thing in the world, but somehow people manage to still screw it up.
To everyone who commented about the sexualization of child characters in anime having no real-world harm, and that it's just a part of Japan's culture, I would like to inform you of the increasing rates of child abuse, which includes sexual abuse, that Japan has been experiencing, reaching record-breaking heights for the last 29 years in a row.
Actually, I looked up the statistics for myself, and physical abuse has been going up. Neglect has been going up. Psychological abuse has skyrocketed, but sexual abuse has basically stayed the same. Like, I do get what this person is trying to do, and they are definitely making such a brave stance of being anti-pedophilia. But, maybe they could do it a little bit better. She also makes a few weird examples of the depiction of black people in media to compare to lolicon for some reason.
I liked The Promised Neverland, but its depictions of Sister Crone reinforced awful racist imagery of black people, which is harmful to black people.
No, black YouTuber has already made a response to this video, and his answer was, it's not blackface.
Okay, here's a little Easter egg for you guys who don't know what I look like, but I'm black. Sister Crone isn't offensive in any way. It doesn't reinforce any racist ideals, and I never once got off-put by how she looks in the show. And if you want to use the example that because she had exaggerated details to make her look like the old blackface characters from back then, Isabelle had exaggerated details on her face too. And if you want to point to her large lips, guess what? My lips are fucking massive. My nose is big, just like hers. While it may seem offensive to you, it didn't seem offensive to me. She just seemed like a normal, drawn black character, and I didn't have a problem with that.
Remember when Princess and the Frog came out and plenty of people were saying that the princess in that was, whiteified?
So please, don't get offended on my behalf. I don't recall ever seeing people being offended over how Sister Crone looked. And I feel like that's where a lot of this is coming from, is being offended on other people's behalves and calling for action.
Also, Japan doesn't have the same history with blackface as the West does. So she goes on to talk about how media does affect reality, and her example is, well, the first movie to play in the White House, Birth of a Nation.
Fiction does actually affect reality. Which, this is not my opinion, this is a fact. One of the most notorious examples is the 1915 silent film Birth of a Nation. Some of you might be familiar with it because it single-handedly inspired the rebirth and resurgence of the KKK only a month after its release.
And while I do agree that fiction can affect reality, Birth of a Nation was a propaganda movie that was designed to affect reality. The guy who made it was an outspoken racist. He was not reviving the Klan by accident.
In one of the early arcs, the dungeon master, Griffin McElroy, accidentally stumbled into the bury your gays trope, wherein one of his queer non-playable characters' story unfortunately ended in tragedy. And when people online told him about how that's kind of a loaded, shitty trope, he literally changed it and made efforts to not let that happen again.
Now, the whole bury your gays trope is a very hotly debated topic. Hell, it was one of the first videos on my old channel. Personally, I think a character's death makes them even more memorable. But I do get why it upsets people. There are very few LGBT characters, so when you kill them off, well, there's even less of them now. But the thing is, the more and more queer characters there are, the more of them are going to die. I feel like it's not really a trope and people greatly exaggerate it. I mean, can a gay character die, like, ever? I'm pretty sure Dumbledore was gay, but his death was definitely a game changer for the series. I think if they let him live, his character wouldn't have been as memorable as it is now. Personally, I think old mentor characters die way more than any other type of character. If there's any bury or whatever trope, it's old men.
Or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yep, that's definitely JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, my favorite anime ever.
Don't lose your way, your mind, we have to be as one.
But in all seriousness, I'm sure this was just an editing mistake. Noralities isn't a bad YouTuber by any stretch of the imagination. They just made a few small mistakes. For now. The spotlight hit them a little too soon, and I highly doubt this will be the first time they get into trouble. I really wanted to make this video longer, but the drama around Noralities started dying out, so I just had to quickly finish this up and get it out as soon as I could. My suggestion for Noralities is this. Number 1, don't be a hypocrite. If it's bad to sexualize 16-year-old girls, it's also bad to sexualize 16-year-old boys. And number 2, you come across as really grandstanding and preachy, and no one likes to be preached to. I'm pretty sure Noralities is young and just wants to get their thoughts out there to make the world a better place. And if that is their intention, more power to them. But Noralities, your moralities are not the only ones out there. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it think.
And especially not on a platform like YouTube, which has historically pushed women out of the creative space for, voicing their opinion.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.